Hello everybody, welcome to another Expectations of an Avid Gamer, although this time it's the finale. And today we're going to be talking about Resident Evil 8 Winters expansion. So, I will go ahead and say now, spoilers all abound, because I will be talking about everything up until the ending and outside of the first hour or so, which is what I talked about in my reality. As per usual, this is going to be just another format where I jot down some notes and riff on them. These are going to be the most memorable things I liked or disliked about the experience. So, with that all out of the way, we're going to get into it. So my first thing is the house was hella fucking spooky again, and quite honestly, I thought it was worse this time. Really, I just think it's worse because, oh god, dolls and mannequins. I am probably one of the most basic people out there whenever it comes to shit like that, but the dolls and mannequins spooked me. There was a section I was playing where the mannequin of Mia decided to, stand up and start following me around and do its creaking thing. So the first time I got caught because I wasn't paying attention. I thought you just had to run from it, but no, you had to keep your eyes on it. So I did that. I got into the bedroom, got the fuse, and then there was one that popped into the doorway, and I said, okay, cool, I'll just make sure to keep my eyes on it. So I turned around, had my eyes on the doorway, and apparently there was fucking two of them, and the second one got me, and it spooked me so hard I quit playing for the night. So I went back the next day and went through it and made sure to do all of that, and it was just, it was fucking nightmare fuel. Pretty much anything that does a weeping angel where it moves when you don't look at it creeps me out. So that was definitely horror-inducing, and as much as I was shrieking "no baby no" during my original RE8 playthrough, this was much worse. This was definitely much worse, and especially when you got shrunk down and the dolls were bigger than you and the mannequins definitely were, and it was just all kinds of nightmare fuel and just no. My next point is I called Ethan being Michael. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but still, it's a nice little thing, and he even does the whole "I did that to protect you" and all of that. And I really love the father-daughter bond that they got to share, especially now that Ethan is completely dead, and she never really got a chance to be with her father. So now, being older, she gets to have some kind of closure with that, and he also gets to have some kind of closure with that, because this isn't just a memory of Ethan. It's a lot of his essence and his being trapped in the McKnight. So I really did enjoy that. Got all up in my feels, and that's the kind of thing I love. I just love shit that gets up in my feels. I did like that they brought back Mother Miranda. She's honestly one of my more favorite antagonists of Resident Evil. I really like her story of just being so distraught with grief that she would do anything to bring her child back. And if you're anybody that says, hey, why didn't she just have another kid? I want you to take a look at yourself and really ask that question, because that is in incredibly poor taste. And there was somebody's video I watched that I will not point out who it was, but they said that, and I immediately went from, okay, this video's kind of whatever, but just to this is fucking awful. Don't be one of those people that just says, just have another kid. It's not that easy, and it's not the same, and you're fucking terrible for even thinking that. Anyway, back to the actual game instead of my little rant. It was appropriately terrifying, and it treaded a very fine line between action and horror. It does get a little bit more actiony, especially with the ending with Mother Miranda, with your powers being in full swing and being able to do more stuff. But especially up until that point, like I said in the first one, the enemies don't drop anything. So it's very much a conserve your resources survival horror, and that to me made it even more spooky and terrifying than the base game, which the base game wasn't. The base game was basically Resident Evil 4. It was kind of scary, kind of spooky, but it was more about the action, and especially whenever you know, okay, my resources are getting low or whatever, fine, I'll switch to a different gun, I'll go buy something, because you can buy ammo in the main game. You know, you can't do that in this one, because nothing gets dropped. You have to scavenge and find everything yourself, and I do love that for it. I really hope going forward we can have that really fine line between action and horror, where you get all the big action set pieces, but you're still very much having to scavenge for everything, so the moment to moment, you're still panicking and freaking out. You could still very much make mistakes that kind of almost soft locks you out of something because you use too much resources, and now you're kind of screwed for this next fight. So I do kind of wish there was like a melee option in there, you know, just maybe a separate thing for your powers where you could, you know, smack them away and it does some damage, or have a knife or something. That was the only part I didn't quite like, is that it didn't give you enough options should you run out of ammo, just like any other Resident Evil game. As I said before, I really like the power boost that Rose gets at the end, and I kind of hope we get another Resident Evil game similar to that. This does seem to very much close out the Winter storyline. We might see some more of Rose in the future. We might not. You know, it's very, very unsure of what's going to happen with Resident Evil 9, or if there's going to be another spin-off or something. But I would like to see another powers / action kind of thing. It doesn't work for everything, but it was very neat to play as, and I kind of really like that. One little thing I was disappointed on, outside of the Duke just being a creation of Mother Miranda, there wasn't any extra info on him. I thought maybe it was the Duke from the game absorbed into the Megamycete, and something twisted happened with him and you might save him, but you just find out in a note or later on in the game that he just was a creation of Mother Miranda. So that was a little disappointing. I was kind of hoping there was more to the Duke, because I loved him in the base game. He was a pretty great presence to just have around. And the ending of the DLC was the ending to the base game, where Rose is in the graveyard and all that. But now we have more context of, it's not just her visiting her father's grave, it's her visiting her father's grave after she got to have some kind of closure with him inside the Megamycete. And I really like it whenever stuff brings it full circle like that. Because you don't always see that kind of stuff, and especially up until that point, we thought that maybe this DLC was going to take place after that scene in the end, but it was right before that ending scene, and you know, showing she still has powers, so that was a nice little rug pull as well. I think the only other game I can think of offhand that did something like that was Kingdom Hearts 3, where the ending of Remind lined up with the ending of 3, because you were seeing what happened up until that point. And this does seem to be the closure of the Winter story, but I would love to see more of Rose as a side character. I still don't really know how good a time skip would do. I'm still very iffy on that, because it would be going 16 years into the future, so all of our old OG characters, Chris, Rose, Jill, everybody, like all of them would be pretty much too old to do it, which maybe not. I mean, Isaac Clarke is like in his 50s in Dead Space 3 and kicking ass, so we could still see something like that. But I know that much of a time skip, it would be more like, hey, we missed a bunch of their story. So that's kind of iffy, but I would like to see, like, if, say, the Resident Evil 9, 10, 11, or whatever spans over 16 years, but in increments, we could just see more of Rose in that time and see more. I don't really know what the future holds for that, but I do just hope that it puts things together in a kind of satisfying way. My last point I had put down, there wasn't anything on Mia either. It kind of seems like she's living with the BSAA, or she's just guarded, or maybe she's living on her own and they are watching over her. Outside of a small mention of haven't talked to her in a while, there is no mention of Mia, and it's kind of just like, well, what the fuck happened, because, you know, Ethan went through hell to save her, and, you know, is she still working for the connections? How did that whole thing go down? I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions with that, so I hope that we aren't done with the Winters. I do hope that there is a bit more, just because there's still some unanswered questions, and maybe I'm just a weird one that's like, oh, what happened to Mia? I mean, not even that I particularly care for Mia. I would have... my canon choice would have been Zoe, just because Mia was kind of a shit. But it feels weird for there to only be a single mention of haven't talked to Mia in a while. And, you know, that's her mother. So it's a weird situation. Anyway, that's really all of the thoughts I have on Resident Evil 8, The Winters Expansion. I did give my thoughts on the third person. I've tried it a little bit more since then. I don't really have anything new to say. I still am not a fan of it, just because it just brings all the cutscenes back into first person, and it would have been nice to have like a third-person perspective. Now, if they had done third-person perspective in the in the DLC, I would say that should have been part of the DLC. It would have been worth it. But since they just introduced third-person for just moving around, and you can't even see Ethan's face, which you can see Rose's face, so why can't you see Ethan's? Oh, that was another thing. That you don't ever see Ethan's face in any of the cutscenes. They go really hard out of their way to make sure the camera cuts in all the right places. And I was laughing at that, because it was just like, okay, now you know it's on purpose, because not only are they making it to where you can't turn the camera around in third person to see him, you don't even get to see him in cutscenes, and it's just hilarious. And I know Ethan probably just looks like a basic character, but it's one of those things that's like, wow, okay, you're really going hard with the bit. Anyway, long-ass tangent aside, I think the third-person bit of the DLC is still disappointing, because all it adds is the third person, and it doesn't introduce new cutscenes. The gameplay isn't really much different. Not that you would expect it to be much different, but I just figure for that third person, that should have been a free update. If they're not going to update any of the cutscenes to match the third personness, it shouldn't have been included, in my opinion. And Mercenaries mode, I believe I said in my reality video, I haven't really played Mercenaries, and I didn't play Mercenaries additionally because in the main game, I haven't, you know, like I said, I hadn't really touched it since launch. So I would have to play a lot of Mercenaries to be able to unlock Lady D and Heisenberg, and I think Chris is an unlockable character, or maybe he was unlockable in the base game. I don't really remember. So it'll be something I do a lot later down the line. But for me personally, the Winters expansion was about Shadows of Rose. That was what I wanted out of the DLC. And I'll get to playing the Mercenaries at some point, but as far as this review goes, I don't have anything additional to say on it because I haven't played it. I got through Shadows of Rose, that was what I wanted to do, and then it's done. But overall, I was very happy with it. If I had just paid the $20 for Shadows of Rose, I would have been happy with that, which I basically ended up doing, because like I said, I didn't care for the third-person mode, and I haven't played Mercenaries, so basically I did just buy it for Shadows of Rose. But beyond that, I was very happy with how it turned out. I'm very excited to see what Capcom has cooking up next for Resident Evil. Just very, very excited to see. And anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and try not to die out there.